I wanted to discuss psychedelics a little bit because the subjects come up. I had a really good friend that I worked with, and we were really close, like kindred spirits. He ended up killing himself, and after that, this being the first time I've ever dealt with death, I decided that I was going to try to have a profound spiritual experience in relation to life and death. At this time it was spring, and I decided, well, I'm going to take some psilocybin mushrooms and go out into the woods and then try to figure this whole thing out. So I did. Went out walking and got out to the fields behind my home, and these fields were just dead. There was just nothing out there. It was just, I mean, just old remains, carcasses of the life that had existed the year before, and one tree. And in this tree, the tree was just full of black birds, ravens, or it's just these eerie-looking black birds just filled this tree, which had no leaves on it, just this old stick of a tree. And I just felt dead. I felt completely dead. I was drained. I didn't want to be there. So I turned around and walked back to the city. And in the city, I heard this family, this Hispanic family, speaking Spanish to each other, playing a game of soccer, and laughing and running back and forth and hugging each other and just as happy as can be. And then as I sat there watching this family play, I started to notice how many voices I was hearing. Everyone had come outside of their homes because, you know, it was the first nice day of the year, and everybody was outside, barbecuing and being with each other, and I felt life. And I realized that in this city, even though we've caused a lot of death, we've also created a lot of life. We've kind of created, you know, a forest in the desert, if you will. The temperature was warmer. Everything was just more alive. The grass was starting to green and grow, and I realized that there was this really interesting connection between disorder and life. I found that the piles of debris, leaves and sticks and twigs and everything that were laying on the lawns were actually encouraging life around it. And I could see this really clearly, and I got a really clear message to me that said, disorder is what I need. I need disorder to thrive. And I really, you know, I thought about that. It's just, you know, if you just leave piles of the leaves on the ground, you know, after they fall, if you don't sweep them up, if you don't mow your lawn, if you don't, you know, do this manicured living, then everything will grow better, stronger, and healthier. You know, it needs the disorder. The little nooks and crannies of life exist in this disordered piles of twigs are great places for animals to live, and I could really see that. And I came home and I felt so good. I felt so clear and so connected. And I found a little beetle, and that beetle climbed onto my finger. And I looked at that beetle, and I thought, wow, I wonder what that beetle's thinking. And the beetle said, I wonder what he's thinking. And I said, whoa, I could hear that. And he said, whoa, you can hear that? Since when have you guys been able to hear me? I said, what, you hear us? Yeah, we've always been able to hear you. Oh my, okay, I'm like, okay, drug-induced psychosis, big problem, okay. But the beetle didn't leave my finger. He sat there for like 2 hours. We just sat there, just looking at each other, just sharing that moment with each other. And finally, I put him down, and you know, the day went on. I ended up sobering up, and the next day I thought, man, that was the craziest thing. That was the craziest thing. There's no way that I must have imagined that could not have been real, you know? It can't be real. Magic can't be real. We live in a world without any form of magic. Everything is mathematical and standardized, and there's laws, you know, and they can't be broken, and you know, my logic was taking over. The next evening when I laid down to bed, I laid down, put the covers over me, and the same bug flies right onto my finger again. It says goodnight. I said goodnight and I put him back down. Same bug flies up onto my finger the next night. It says goodnight. I say goodnight and I put him back down. There is more in the world than our eyes see. And the fact that we are so disconnected from the world around us, that we have isolated ourselves into this society, and we don't realize that we are just biological entities, this new form of life that is really just a transition from all the other forms that have come before us. One more story before I run out of time. I decided to make spring be my new tradition. Now, I'm not really interested in just taking mushrooms constantly. That's it's not a substance to be constantly consumed. I don't want my mind to always be at this point. I take it every spring now to reconnect with life and death, because mushrooms for me has always been life and death thing, to put the two together to complete the cycle. And this last spring I went out and I was with my brother, and as we first took them and we started to feel the effects, we started to really share each other's experiences, and we were talking to each other. We've been here before. We've been here. I know that we've been here before. And we were both so confident that this was not the first time that this has happened, yet we both understood very clearly in our minds that we have never physically ever been to this moment before. And as we were walking around, we would notice things simultaneously. And when we came out to that place, it's the middle of the desert. I mean, I live in a desert, and there's just very little life, and we're like, this isn't going to be very good. We want to be connected to nature. And as soon as we started to see these effects of the mushrooms, we started to realize that we are surrounded with life everywhere. There was so much, and everything that was living would illuminate itself, almost as if it was shining at us. We would see molds and fungal spores all around us. There was fungus eating the rocks and everything around us. The trees were being eaten by different kinds of fungus, and they would shine these most brilliant colors at us. And we as we were walking around and just feeling so connected to everything, we stumbled upon a carcass, and we actually sat down and we discussed death. At this rotting, festering, maggot-filled carcass, there was millions of bugs inside of this thing, different kinds, and we just watched this thing decaying and talking about life and death so matter-of-factly. It was just so, we were so there, present. I mean, there was nothing wrong. There was no hard feelings. There was nothing disgusting about this festering carcass. We sat there. We were there for like an hour and a half, just sitting, talking, discussing, being present. Shortly after that, we stumbled across a fungus that like shined at us, and we both were drawn to it. And when we looked at it, it opened up, it moved. Now, if you look at Paul Stamets, you'll realize that the fungus among us is alive and conscious. It is aware. But we all looked at this fungus that kind of like opened, like you could see, and then we touched it with a stick. We're like, did that move? So we touched it with a stick. As soon as we touched it, and then as we would sit there, it would open back up. And we'd go to touch it. We didn't even have to touch it anymore. It knew. It was aware of us. Amazing experiences, and I would suggest to anybody, if you want to really understand, and if you're willing to let go of the assumptions that you've held inside of you for most of your life. Go and have a psychedelic experience, and you will be more spiritually connected to the world around you, the universe, than you have ever been in your entire life. And it will help you become a better person. I promise. I love you all. I'm out.